Serial killer pleads insanity, but doesn't know the teen victim survived.
I stutter, just like a pig, because this country is like the mother of all countries, and what happens in the US can change the entire world.
So how do you want to change it? With death? With blood?
Yes, this is the only way out. They want to see blood, and I give them blood.
This is the railroad killer. He
What?
evaded the death penalty for years by pleading to be legally insane. And since his arrest, nobody has been able to prove him wrong.
There is something wrong with him, but does it make him any less morally responsible?
The FBI was convinced that out of his 23 victims, none survived. Until one did.
I'm Holly, and I'm the only known survivor of the railroad serial killer.
Yo, they got her on like 4K HD talking about it afterward? That's crazy.
Assaulted, beaten,
I'm glad she
stabbed,
survived.
and left for dead. 20-year-old Holly K. Dunn came face to face with the infamous railroad killer.
It was a horror show. Heads beaten to a pulp, just horrific violence.
But instead of succumbing to her injuries, she became the sole survivor out of his 23 alleged victims, the only one able to stop him.
From his perspective, she basically came back from the grave to nail him.
Holly was fresh out of her parents' house in Indiana, as she had just left for college with her boyfriend.
In late August 1997, I was a student at the University of Kentucky. It was about the second night of classes. It was a Thursday night, and I went to a party with my boyfriend, Chris Meyer, not far from campus.
Later that night, the two decided to leave to take a walk beside the railroad tracks. It is at this point that they came face to face with a shadowy figure.
It was very
Okay, I have two questions. Why is this person that is a serial killer looking to kill people on the railroad tracks? That's just kind of odd. I feel like that's like your success rate got to be mad low, you know, but he killed that many people. Like, I feel like how many people walk the railroad tracks? But also, I feel like walking the railroad tracks is never a good idea. You know what I'm saying?
very dark and you couldn't see very
Like,
well. So it was
I've
very
only ever
startling to
heard
see.
bad things about people that have done this. Like, they've done something bad or bad things have happened, you know?
Someone come out that was crouched behind an electrical box.
The man gave
Maybe
them a
framing them
menacing
for
look,
suicide?
pulled out a weapon,
Oh, I didn't think about that at all, actually.
and ran towards them.
And I don't remember being hit. I think he thought he had killed me.
During the assault, she had to go through much more than just getting knocked out. But what really happened that night would only be revealed years later, during her attacker's trial. When she eventually woke up, her boyfriend wasn't responsive at all. Holly had to leave him there and went to look for help on her own.
I was definitely knocked out, but I somehow, at some point, got up to get help. All I could think was go get help.
The night of August 29th, 1997, about 2:45 in the morning, we received a call for a female that had been injured.
Behind the phone is Chad Getz, another student. He was studying late until a woman covered in blood broke into his house.
The screen door was closed. I opened the screen door and walked into this person's house.
I was sitting in my chair studying, and out of the corner of my eye, I just glimpsed something. Her face, it looked like a boxer whenever they get cut during a boxing match. I thought she was going to die. There was no doubt in my mind.
Despite her broken jaw, Holly was still able to speak. After laying down, she told him
Yo, with a broken jaw? Oh my God.
that her boyfriend was still down by the tracks.
And I did keep saying to him, my friend's still out there. Be sure they know my friend's still out there. My friend's still out there.
Soon after Chad made the call, the police and paramedics arrived and checked up on Holly.
When we walked through the front door, I remember seeing a lot of dry blood on her face and in her hair. Had some deformity to her jaw. We found a puncture wound, I believe, on her neck. She was able to tell us her name was Holly and that she'd been raped, she'd been beaten, and she told us she was hurting.
She gave the paramedics more details about what happened to her and asked them to leave her and go look for Chris
Yo,
instead.
that crack was like right here. Imagine moving your masseter muscle, which moves this, and it's like separate. Oh my God.
That her friend was down the tracks. One of the paramedics that I was with said he would go down there with the police to find this person. The third paramedic
she was
came
committed,
back.
honestly.
He confirmed
Shout out to her.
that, there was a body down there that had been hit in the head with a rock and that he wasn't viable for us to call for another ambulance. to transport him to the hospital. But he whispered it to me so not to let the girl know what he had found. So we didn't want to make her situation any worse than it already was.
At the hospital, Holly kept asking her family about Chris.
Everyone was told not to talk to me. I just said, Chris is dead, isn't he? And my dad actually is the one that I said that to, and he was like, yes, he died.
He was charming and so sweet and kind.
Now that's gotta be the worst. Like, imagine you used to invest time to find the love of your life and it's taken from you, bro. Like, that always seems like one of the most devastating things ever. On top of that, like, you know, you gonna have survivor's guilt too if you're hurt as well. Like, it's like two things at the same time that are complicating everything.
Was just a great guy. When Chris died, I think I didn't understand why I was still alive and why he wasn't.
And this wasn't the only shocking revelation she had to deal with that night, since the police immediately linked the case to more murders.
At that point, 4 people had been murdered and I was the only survivor.
The realization that not only Chris died, but also more people came crashing down as the survivor's guilt she felt.
Yo, he was far. Oh my, he did Texas all the way up to Lexington.
Was unbearable.
I started to feel it more as more and more people were being killed. It grew bigger. You know, all these people were dying by this person, but somehow I lived through it. And why did I live through it?
As he kept killing more and more people, investigators started to lose hope.
He would not stop, and his mode of transportation using the railroads was brilliant because they couldn't be monitored. I mean, there's thousands of trains and millions of miles of tracks all over the United States.
Devin Anderson,
so I assume he was just sneaking on the trains then, like cargo trains.
Prosecutor discovered that he was a train hopper with multiple aliases.
If you're willing to sleep in a train and you're willing to sleep in a field, or you can stay lost for a long time, and I did not think we were ever going to catch him.
On the verge of death at the hospital, Holly still wanted to help investigators, and to their surprise, she ended up being extremely helpful to the case.
Okay.
Even if she was weakened by her injuries,
let's go.
She took mental notes of everything she could remember about her attacker's appearance.
I mean, I was doing things during the attack thinking, I'm gonna burn your face into my memory. I'm going to remember every tattoo you have, every scar you have. I'm gonna look on every part of your body and I'm gonna know everything about you. Because if I survive this, I'm gonna get you.
Despite being disfigured and heavily injured.
Yo, and it's crazy that she survived, because I feel like sometimes when you get knocked out, you forget just everything, bro.
She survived, but it would take a while before she got a chance to call him out. After 3 years and 9 more victims, the FBI finally identified the man to be Angel Maturino Resendez, a criminal from Puebla, Mexico, who recently got caught crossing the US border. The only reason they were able to catch him was because of the tattoos and scars descriptions given by Holly years earlier. The sketches and general descriptions had been useless so far, since he was always changing his appearance after killing someone. Now that they knew his identity, they got his sister to persuade him to turn.
Yo, if you always change your appearance after killing somebody, you are like, you've killed too many people. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's insane.
In exchange for a psychological.
I've heard stories of people getting plastic surgery after killing people too. Like, that's terrifying.
Evaluation, but what they didn't know was that he was already planning his defense.
Insanity was the logical defense, because no one wants to believe that there's someone out there that will do things like that. That was the thing that worried me the most about the case, was that jurors would just throw up their hands and say, nobody in their right mind could do what he does.
Mr. Resendez, do you please?
I mean, that's true, but that doesn't mean you're like mentally ill in the same way that would require an insanity case. But also, this was like, what, the 90s? Like, mental health conditions, and what is it, the MSD-5 or whatever the hell they call it, like, probably wasn't as well known at this point by like every common person. So they're very much so like, yeah, you're just insane. You know, I feel like that was like thrown around a lot.
As Holly heard the news about her attacker's arrest, her traumatizing memories came flooding back.
I mean, it was a relief for me. I mean, I was still very scared. This really meant, I think, when he surrendered, that I knew that I was going to face him again.
After years of pursuit, Prosecutor Anderson finally got to see the man she so far only knew as the railroad killer.
You could feel he was dangerous. He was a dangerous person. He looked like a wild animal who had been caught.
As Anderson guessed, his defense team planned an insanity defense. If successful, Resendez could be
like, imagine you gotta defend this guy. Like, on God, I would quit. No, like, I can't do that. There's no way I could be a defense attorney because, like, you would have to defend, like, monsters, bro.
In an institution and eventually even released into the world. But the prosecutor still had one last trick up her sleeve.
I flew into Houston with my family the night before I was going to testify, and I woke up during the middle of the night screaming and crying. What I was most worried about, I think, when I testified was seeing him again.
You become a defense attorney, can you back out? I think you can. I don't know, actually. I've seen cases of people doing that and then they have to like redo the whole trial. I think if you are a defense attorney and you intentionally screw over your client and do bad, you can get a retrial. So like, I'm not sure.
Mere minutes before the trial started, Anderson took a minute to talk to the panicked Holly.
I went back there and said, okay, are you ready? And she said, yep. And I said,
I never understood people being a defense attorney for murders. I understand if like you believe your client is innocent, because there are definitely people who get falsely accused of stuff all the time. But like at the same time, it's like there are definitely people that like people defend that they know are guilty.
He's going to be in there looking at you. Don't look at him. Just look at me. Don't look at him until I ask you to.
She took a second to give her a hug and pointed her towards the doors.
I cannot imagine the amount of courage she had to marshal to come into that courtroom, to walk in and face him.
She chose to present Holly as the last testimony of the trial. As the sole survivor, she was her only hope to convince the jury.
We're going to tell you about the people who've been murdered, most of whom murdered in their own homes. I knew that I wanted Holly to testify last, so by the time she took the stand, the jury had heard the gruesome details of all the other murders that we had solved at that point.
When I went into the courtroom, I sat down.
But that's actually a good strat, like planning every other murder before having the actual victim speak, because it really builds the story of like, hey, this guy has done this a lot.
Chair.
One of my teachers screw one of his constantly confessed. Yeah, but that's illegal technically. So if they retried it and found out that your teacher or whoever the hell told you that intentionally did that, they could go to prison. At least in the US. I don't know what country you're from, but.
To testify, I did not look at him. I was looking straight at Devin.
As an opener, Anderson asked her a very unusual question. What did you do last weekend? But behind that question was an opportunity to empower her and show to Resendez that she was stronger than him.
I was really excited to say I graduated from college. To me, I was saying to him, you didn't destroy me.
Yeah, good for you. Yo, I'm so proud of her. I don't know you,
Finally,
and you
Holly
older than me, but I'm proud of you. Because low-key, I don't know if I could have done this.
It had to be kept secret for the investigation.
Then I went into the details of that night.
After explaining that Resendez first asked for money before forcing them to kneel down in front of him, Holly went to explain the actual assault. Be warned that the following segment may be disturbing to some people.
He made Chris get down on his knees and started going through Chris's backpack. I thought he was looking for money. But really what he was doing was tying up Chris's hands behind his back with his backpack. At that point, with the weapon in his hand, he took off my belt and he tied my hands behind my back with my belt. He pulled Chris into the grass beside the tracks.
With Resendez's attention focused on Chris, Holly could have ran at any moment.
I was not going to leave Chris. I remember him ripping a shirt and he tied up my legs, he tied up Chris's legs, and then he made gags for us.
Yo, not leaving your boyfriend is
run.
I'm not gonna lie, yo, as messed up as this sounds, bro, that's some loyalty. But part of me thinks like sometimes I think running away, if you know you can get help, would be a better solution. You know what I'm saying? Because like regardless, if you're both tied up, you're both gonna be screwed. If you run and get help, you're not gonna be screwed, and they might not be screwed too. You know what I'm saying? So but I don't know, man. That's also love. So it's like, I've never been in love like that. So I don't know how, maybe I would stay if I, was, but.
If you can. And I couldn't get my legs untied, so I couldn't run. I don't know how much time passed between that time and when our attacker came with the rock.
It was like so heavy that he was having to like kind of hold it like a baby. And
like I said, I feel like it's kind of like a gray area because it's like what option is better really is like up to fate. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, who knows if she would have died if she stayed? She probably, technically, like, by the way they describe it, she should have. So if she would have ran anyway, she would have probably increased her chance of living and also maybe helped. But at the same time, it's like, maybe with two of them, they thought there could be a more conductive solution. Like, it's just, you don't really know, you know, what to do in these sort of circumstances.
Just remember him coming over to Chris and he just dropped it on his head. And it was like a dream. I mean, I didn't really understand what was happening.
In her confusion, she heard a loud noise, a sound she had never heard before.
What I heard was actually a death rattle. It was his last breath. That's what I heard.
After the murder, he turned his eyes towards Holly, and from the way he was looking at her, she knew he had something else other than murder on his mind. But
also, yeah, I feel like if I was a woman too, like, to avoid this part, like, I think running is kind of valid as well.
Was determined to fight him.
And then he climbed on top of me, and I knew at that moment he was going to rape me. I tried to kick him, I tried to punch him, and he stabbed me in my neck. And he said, "Look how easily I could kill you."
And this is the moment it happened. Out of respect for Holly and the other victims of Resendez, we won't be covering much of the assault past this point, but note that afterward, Resendez tried to kill her.
My mind completely blacked out.
He hit me hard. He was trying to kill me. I laid there and he thought I was dead. I'm just thinking, I mean, how did this, what, you know, I don't even know what just happened.
Yeah, it's like, I wouldn't know what to do, bro. Like I said, running, you know, optically in hindsight could be a better idea, but like, bro, you never know how you're gonna react until you're in the situation. And she was really trying to be loyal to the person that she loved the most. So I can respect that. You know what I'm saying? I'm never gonna, like, her choice in that scenario either way was like a rough one. And I feel like at the end of the day, she lived and brought this guy to justice.
With this last statement, Holly finished her testimony. The entire courtroom was filled with a mix of disgust, disbelief, and sadness. And at that moment, Anderson looked straight into Holly's eyes.
Just, I felt so proud of her for doing it. And she cried. I mean, she was very, you know, emotional, but she told it, she got it out.
The jurors were crying, Devin was crying.
It was the moment I had been waiting for in the trial because I wanted a victim of his to face him down because no one else could.
But Anderson wasn't done yet, as she went on to ask her last question to Holly, the question that would finally put an end to the railroad killer's rampage. To her, everything else had been building up to this moment. Anderson asked, "Can you please identify the accused? What is he wearing?"
And so at this moment, I knew I was going to have to look at him. So I look at him and I, you know, point to him and I say, he's wearing a white button-down shirt.
I have never felt such relief in my entire life, and I probably never will. Just thank God. And it was a great moment. It's a great moment because she got to call him out for all those other people sitting in the courtroom and for all those other people who were dead. She got to call him out. It was great.
And as I'm saying that, I feel my hearing going into my head. I get really hot and I feel like I'm about to faint.
Even though it was a cathartic moment for Holly, one can only handle that much.
You know, I saw him and
yo, bring him to justice. Fuck this bastard.
Emotionless face. I broke down at that point and they had to carry me out of the courtroom. I was
You did your thing though. You did your thing though.
Destroyed. I mean, I couldn't give any more than I gave during that trial.
After Holly was carried
I'm proud of you. You did good.
Anderson addressed the jurors one last time before they finally gave their verdict.
There is something wrong with him, but does it make him any less morally responsible? No.
The jury did find that he was a future danger to society, so the judge sentenced him to death.
One surprising fact is how fast Holly landed back on her feet. Way before the execution, even before the trial itself, she was already trying to help other victims.
I started speaking about 2 years after the attack. He said, "Look how easily I could kill you." To me, it felt like part of my healing process to talk about it and to cry about it and to be emotional, because for so long I had to kind of detach emotion from it.
The way that I went on with my life was I had to forgive him and look for the good that could come from this.
When I was speaking, I didn't have to worry about that. I could work through my emotions, and that really helped me in my healing process. Being a survivor is one thing, but helping other survivors and knowing how to do that in a professional manner was another thing.
And she isn't using the word professional lightly. She literally turned her entire life around with the urge she felt to help other survivors. This is why she decided to found her own advocacy center for victims of violent crimes. They opened in 2008 and have already served justice to more than 300 survivors.
Holly is a hero because she did not let what happened to her destroy her. She decided to make it
that's awesome.
Reason to live, or her reason to help people.
And even if her work today is very impressive,
see, I love people that like
journey
can like turn negative stuff into positive stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's admirable. And I think there's something admirable to be said about someone who goes through a lot and not only turns it around, but uses it as a way to help others. But I don't ever want to say that to like lessen the amount of power or empowerment you should feel if you went through something like this and you didn't have the resources or the fortitude to then start helping others. Like, if you went through something this crazy and you just survived yourself and was able to rebuild back your life, like, I think that is still very admirable and should be celebrated as well, because that's not easy, bro. A lot of people that have rough stuff like aren't able to bounce back, or it's a very difficult process. So if you're able to bounce back at all, I think that is admirable.
It was even more so. She ended up redefining herself. No more was she a victim. She was now a survivor.
A survivor is someone who gets up each day and lives their life and can choose happiness, can choose to smile. I think that that's a survivor. You don't have to be a person who goes out and does public speaking or writes a book. You get up each day and you put your 2 feet on
she's saying what I just said. Hey, yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
The ground and you choose to do something. It's that simple.
He attempted to destroy her, but she's the one who came up on top. Today, she wants her story to be heard. For all the voiceless survivors out there, she wants them to know that they survived for a reason.
I survived because I wasn't done. I survived to do something.
That's powerful, because, like, you know, she had all the survivor's guilt too initially, and now she brought his deplorable, disgusting, dehumanizing, awful person to justice and was able to do a net good for the community and her, even just like herself, bro. See, hearing people like this always kind of like restores my faith in like people's ability bounce back or have like some like indomitable like willpower. You know, it like gives me hope, because as someone who's dealt with a lot of crazy stuff too, I mean, nothing to this degree ever. I never like was almost killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. But I've experienced stuff similar. It's good, at least for me, like when, especially if it's just happened to you, to see like other people still move on. Because a lot of the times when you have something crazy happen to you, it seems like a very isolating experience, and you oftentimes feel like you can't move on from it, or it's gonna be a forever thing because it's such a strong feeling. And I think if you never got through anything that's that insane, like, it's hard to quantify what this feels like. It's very much like a feeling of like you don't know how to function in day-to-day life afterward. Like, I've been through some situations where like I couldn't even leave my house afterward or walk the street without being like terrified. And the thing is like, it's irrational, and you know it's irrational, but it's very much a thing where I think it's not easy to see the light at the end of the tunnel if no one models it out for you, or you've seen other people get through similar things. And for me, I'm gonna be honest, when I went through some crazy, I'm not gonna be specific because I don't really want to like open up about my trauma on the internet. I feel like that's just, you know, if I get canceled for saying, you know, like a out-of-pocket joke, that's gonna be the next fodder that people try to use against me. Just like they said, they hoped I could die and not be able to afford my medical bills when I, you know, someone mistranslated something I said. But it's one of those things where a lot of the times when you go through something insane or really bad, you don't have people around you that have ever been through anything even remotely similar for you to even have a way to vent to them and get like answers. And that's the hard part. Because if you go through family problems, you can probably talk to a lot of people in your life that have gone through that. If you go through, you know, a breakup, you definitely know someone who went through a breakup. If you're going through, you know, XYZ, like it's still bad. It's still devastating, whatever. But when you go through something that you don't know a single person in your life that has gone through it, is very difficult to go through because you have no one that will ever fully understand. On top of the fact is that like you won't get any answers from anyone around you. And a lot of the times it's so heavy that you talk to people about it, they don't even know how to respond. And I never expected people to know how to respond. If I'm being honest, I never did. I actually had like very low expectations when I told anyone about anything bad that happened, because like I felt like if I did, you know, I would just set myself up to get disappointed. Like I learned from having health issues that I was like, you know what? Don't expect the doctors to find the answer because you're going to be mad disappointed, right? But it's one of those things where like it's really difficult when you've never had anyone in your life that can even like quantify or slightly relate to what you went through. And it's very difficult. So that's why I think like advocacy groups or knowing people that went through other stuff like really helped. Like I remember at one point with what I went through, I actually met up with this, like my dad didn't know it at the time, but he set me up to talk to this like ex-military guy. And you know, if you're in the military, you got all sorts of PTSD, right? So I was telling this guy, he was like, I don't know, like 40 something, you know what I'm saying? And my dad wanted me to talk to him because of my health issues. He didn't know this thing, like this crazy life event had happened at this point, right? I was able to like, I guess, hear from this guy who, you know, had a similar extreme experience. No, he had the exact same thing happen to him. Like, by nature of the fact that he was just like in the military, you know? And so I was able to talk to him about it. That really helped me be like, you know, there's other people. I only had one conversation with this guy. He was the first person I ever told anyone about anything like crazy. And it was one of those things where it was oddly cathartic in a way like I didn't understand at the time. Because I felt like I was never going to be able to, like, I had told my friends, yes. But I felt like I was never going to be able to tell an authority figure or someone who wasn't like one of my friends about it and have it kind of be understood, or like, I didn't even think I was going to be able to tell my parents. It's one of those things where it's like, it's very interesting how, I guess, knowing other people that went through certain things can help, you know? And like I said, you know what I'm saying? Like it sucks to be like, yeah, your friends can't help you because they never went through something similar. Like they can help you for sure, but like there's only so much, you know what I'm saying? And like it kind of feels isolating in retrospect when everyone you really care about to normally lean on for like normal everyday shit can no longer help you with something that's not everyday shit, because it's not everyday shit. And you know, I never blame them for that, but like it's one of those things where it's like, damn, you know, like it's, I guess you never consider that being even more isolating until it happens. So like that's why I really like people like this, because it's like I feel like it's very powerful for people that have gone through like crazy stuff. And like even now, bro, I ain't gonna lie, there's not a single person in my life that I know that had a similar experience. Yo, there's not one person, not a single person that I am friends with that I would ever fully understand. But it's been a few years now, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's still something you kind of like you gotta live with. Like that's good and bad, because no one else had to deal with this shit. But at the same time, it's like, damn. But also I'm at a point where it's like, it doesn't really bother me that much anymore. And so I would rather not talk about it with someone else to like an extensive, like over and over again, because what's the point? So yeah, if you ever go through anything crazy, difficult, like it's gonna be lonely. It's gonna be lonely when you tell other people, but you can find a way. And I don't know how to even explain how to do that. That's the crazy part. I kind of just like talked to that guy and kind of like figured it the fuck out. But like, you can find a way. It's just gonna take some time. You know, just don't do like drugs. It's not gonna, that's the worst way. Yo, that might seem like a solution, but it's gonna bite you in the ass. Don't do that. That's all I gotta say. Don't do no substances, okay? The substances are not helping you. They're not helping you. They're not gonna help you, bro. Just caffeine. Yo, I think that's a good video to end with, bro.